Welcome to another episode of the Millennial Misses. I am Trinae Watson, your host, and you guys are in for a treat tonight. I am so excited to have Brionna here today.
I'm
Welcome,
excited too.
Brionna.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this podcast. I'm just excited to share, my journey and to hopefully be able to, hopefully my journey inspires somebody's situation, maybe even just something they can relate to. So I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I have known Brionna since high school. She is a fellow Western Dove.
That's right.
We had gym class together. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
I definitely remember. And I remember you always trying to get out of swimming.
Yes, some things don't ever change. Yes, absolutely. Who came up with this? Why do we have to do this? And I still can't swim to this day. Had I went to class and went ahead and got in that pool, maybe I would have learned a thing or two.
Maybe you would have, but you was just like, oh no, I'm on my cycle. I can't today.
Every time.
Every
I'm not
time.
interested. Get somebody else to do it. This is dumb.
Yes. And I forgot that teacher's name. It was something with a W, but she would just be like, okay, Trinae.
Yes, she would be over me, sick of
She would
me.
be so over you. So over you.
Yes. So I have had the privilege and the honor to see you kind of blossom and do all of the things from school to personal life and everything. So let's just kick this off. If you can tell everybody who you are, and that could be whatever you define that as. Who are you?
Oh wow. One of the interesting things about that question now that older in life, I realized that sometimes people tend to answer that question by what they do, but not who
Mm-hmm.
they are.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I? Wow. I am a child of God. I am a woman. I am a Black woman who
Put
is
emphasis on that.
a Black woman. Yes, this is Black History Month. We're gonna put our emphasis on that. And you know, I'm an individual who is very genuine, very authentic. I'm very goal driven, goal oriented. Whatever I want, I'm going for it. And most of the time I'm the person that wants to stick to the plan, but I've learned that it's better to adjust and adapt to change sometimes than it is to stick to a plan, because sometimes when you force yourself to stick to a plan, you end up causing more harm than good, or causing more frustration and anxiety, when you could just be less rigid, be more adaptable, more agile, and adjusting to life. And I think the life experiences that I've had, have taught me that. And so I think I'm actively a person who is now trying to uh, implement that very uh, intentionally in my life. Who else am I? I am a fiance.
Say so. Listen, and he did the thing. Two snaps to
Yes,
that. He
yes.
did the thing.
I am, let's see. I mean, some of the other things I feel like that will get into what I do, but I think that overall, I'm just a God-fearing woman who wants to enjoy life, live life to the fullest, and be used by God to help others. Ultimately, the reason I believe that I still have breath in my body is because my purpose primarily is to bring others to Christ. But I do think that whatever other purpose God is just so multifaceted. I'm sure He has a lot of different purposes for me. So that was a long answer. I feel like I could have probably dived into some more like heartstringing type of
No, you are fine.
explanation.
Listen, You are fine. I think you touched on a lot of topics. So you talked about being a God-fearing woman. So I'm assuming you grew up in church.
I did. I grew up in church every Sunday. And after church or every Sunday, you know, we went to my great grandmother's house for Sunday dinner. So it was very traditional in that sense.
I love that. And you're the only child too, right?
I am my mother's only child. I do have a
Okay.
brother and sister from my father, but I was
Okay.
pretty much raised as an only child because I was the youngest in the household. So
I got you. So I love that you talked about being adaptable. We live
mhm.
in a world today where we come up with our own plan, right? And sometimes God be like, I got my plan for you, and you got your own plan.
Exactly. Look, tell him your plans and he'll laugh.
Right, right. So I want to start from the beginning. Where did you envision yourself at? So at 18 years old, where did you envision yourself being today?
Oh, I don't even think I thought this far, to be
Okay.
honest. But and I would say this far specifically, the age that stood out for me around that time though was 25. And I felt like at 25, I would be married with 2 kids. That was what I thought. I did, and I mean, at 18, I had a passion always for dentistry, which is the field that I'm in. And if you look in Weston's yearbook, that's what I had under my name, like as far as going into the dental field. But I still was kind of like open and a little undecided. So I went to Towson and, you know, I actually studied mass communications. I didn't even take up dentistry initially, but I think at 18, I just thought that I would have some type of career. I would be married with 2 kids. That's kind of what I saw for myself. Now, at this age, I didn't foresee this long, like me being this age, but I knew one thing I did know when I was 18, or I thought I knew, was that I would already have kids. And clearly I don't. So that didn't go as planned.
It didn't go as planned.
Right.
So do you still want children?
I do. I do. I
Okay.
at least want, I think I just want one. I don't know. I mean, if I have to, that's God's will. But I mean, at this point, I'm okay with one.
Listen, I think when I was 18, I had the same thing in mind for as 25, having children, being married, having this white picket fence and everything else.
Yes.
And I got married at 24, had a child at 25. When I look back, now being a 36-year-old woman, I'm like, girl, you was outside your mind thinking that you were going to have all of that at 25, simply
Yes.
because like you did not even get to live.
Well, and
Like it
not
was so
only
much
not get
more
to
to
live, but
life.
you're not that old at 25. Like we thought of that age as being like grown. Like I'm grown. I'm 25, you know, and you think that you have all these things together. But I think even at this age, I'm realizing that I don't know that you ever really have it all together. I mean, I think that like different stages of life cause you to have to adapt to that stage. And
Mhm.
so you've never been at that age before. So you're always adapting. I think we just felt like we would get to a place where things appeared to, maybe we thought that because our parents seemed to, you know, appear as if they had it all together because they were taking care of us and we didn't really want for anything. But really, they were figuring things out too at that age.
You just didn't know. So you had a very different upbringing than I did because I was raised from a single mom, and you
Okay.
had a two-parent household.
Yeah.
And so tell me about some of the values that you were able to see in your household, and some of the ones that you just knew at 18 that you wanted to implement in your family.
Yeah, I definitely wanted I saw the benefit of having my father home, you know, like as far as having him in my life, being very supportive. He was always somebody I could depend on just as much as my mother. And I guess I directed it directly towards my father initially because most single parent households are single mom households. But
Yes.
you know, there are single dad households as well. So I mean, I think both parents are very important, but it solidified for me that I want to make sure that whomever I have a child with is the person that I want to be with, which is why marriage before children was so or is so important to me. And I know, there's the whole then I guess devil's advocate saying to that of, well, a marriage could end and you still could be a single mother. Yes, that is very true. But I would rather put my best foot forward with trying to choose a partner that, I'm friends with, that I'm lovers with, that I want to be with, and then try to create a family and establish a family with that person. So I felt like, seeing that also made it more believable, because sometimes it's harder to even foresee
Imagine.
yourself being in those circumstances without having experienced it. So it did demonstrate a balance in my life, having both of those parents present. And so I saw the benefit in it and definitely want that for my kids or kid.
You touched on something really good. I remember when I was pregnant. So we had a wedding planned and we broke up,
Okay.
and then I got pregnant.
Okay.
And I remember I used to work in Nordstrom.
Uh-huh.
And at the time I worked two jobs. I was working Nordstrom and I was a house manager, but at this particular time I was at Nordstrom. And I
Mhm.
remember like, oh my goodness, like I have to be married. I have to be married. Like I cannot have a baby and not be married. I have to be married.
Mhm.
And I remember my coworker, she was an older lady. She was married and like to me, she like had it all together and everything. So I really took her advice. She looked at me and she said, do you really think being married is like the end all be all? Because number one, you can be married and be a single parent. Like people don't
Mhm.
talk about that. And
Mhm.
then like anything can happen in that marriage. So you want to make sure that it is right so
Mhm.
that you don't have those other variables and things like that. So yes, definitely good to highlight.
Mhm.
So many people do not know, but it's something that I feel like makes you stand out.
Mhm.
You were married
Yes.
and you were became a widow. How
Yes.
old were you when that happened?
I was, I think I was either 24 going on 25 or 25 going on 26. One of
So
those eight.
right in the time frame that your stuff was supposed to happen.
Exactly.
So you got
It was
married
it was starting. Oh, it
right,
was starting. Everything was going perfect according to plan.
right according to plan. Listen.
Right. And
So how
then
long were you married before that happened?
we were married less than 90 days. Yes, but we had been together
Since high school.
we had been together for 11 years before that. Yes.
And everything was planned. You had this amazing wedding, the
Yes.
big whole thing,
Yep.
and you expected your happily ever after.
Yep.
And then tragedy struck.
Yes. And it was just, life was upside down, literally. Um, it was a very difficult time to navigate, and it really was one of those moments where it forces you to surrender to God in a way that you never think you have to or would be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just was one of those things where you're forced to deal with the circumstance, and there was no out for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just what I had to deal with. And I don't regret ever having to deal with that though. Just like Paul says, it was good for me to be afflicted. Um, I think that our love was very real. I appreciated being able to experience that just as much as I appreciate having to endure the pain of the loss of love, right? I think that that was important for me to experience as well. I think that, you know, God doesn't make any mistakes. He gives each of us the grace to deal with whatever circumstance we have to deal with. And in the moment, you don't see that. You question, I definitely question, but one of the key things that I would like to share that helped me in that moment, because I think a lot of times people tend to say, that you're not supposed to question God. And I get that from a perspective of the nature or tone in which you are questioning him in, versus the fact that you are just trying to get an answer,
Understand.
right?
Yes.
Trying to gain understanding. And I'm one that truly believes in in all things get understanding. And I really wanted that understanding because this was just not on the this was not on the list of things that should be happening right now.
Not in 90 days. Not
And
I mean, not in no days. I'm not gonna just say in 90 days.
correct.
I don't think that anybody expects to get married and for this to happen,
Correct.
especially this young.
Right.
So but I am, because my mom was a teenage mom, and I like to say that because I don't know if that is the reason, but I was able to ask questions growing up. I did not grow up in a household where it was because I said so.
Yeah,
I
I'm
grew up,
grateful I didn't either.
yeah, I grew up in a household where I was definitely able to ask a question. Why are we doing this? Like,
Yes.
what sense does this make? So I am a child that I do ask questions of God, and I always preface it with, my heart. So
Yes.
I'm not doing it in a disrespectful way.
Right.
But you see, I was traveling down this road and it looked like it could have been a detour, right? That would have got us to the same destination. I like to ask questions when it all makes sense. I'd be
Yes.
like, it could have been a detour, but you
Yes.
took me around that little mulberry bush.
Yes.
And like, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
Well, you know what? It really falls on scripture for me with Romans 8:28, with all things are working together for the good of those that love the good, that love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. Right. So even though you may not understand the detour or the upset that he is putting you through, or what's the storm, um he is refining you in that process in such a way and using you in such a way that you would never come out the way that he needs you to without you having experienced that. So that's why I say it was good for me to be afflicted. And the main thing I was gonna, before I forget to circle back to it, that I wanted to share was that when I asked God, why did you do this? He said, well, that was my child first, number one. That's my child. And just as I know what was best for him, I also know what's best for you too. So that I said, oh, say no more. He checked me.
stay in my
And
lane.
that was it's kind of interesting, right? Because people talk about hearing the voice of God or hearing from God, and we want to hear him all the time, right? We want him to talk to us, but sometimes you don't hear him as loudly as others, or he may not really be speaking to you in that moment. Doesn't mean he's not there. But in that moment, he spoke so profoundly to me with that. And it gave me the understanding and the peace that I needed to process that. And I was so glad that I asked him, because I needed that, in that moment to try to cope and get through that time.
Of coping, how did you get through that time? I mean, I know that you leaned on God, but what did oftentimes people say, call me if you need me, and they say like the things, but after like the funeral and things like that, and those lonely moments, back to reality, it's like people tend to go. So was that your experience? And if it wasn't, what are some of the ways that you were able to get through some of those challenging times through grief?
I did grief counseling. I think that was very helpful. I definitely relied heavily on God. I mean, I'm listening to sermons, scriptures, gospel songs, created a playlist to get me through that time. But also my support system, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncle, my aunt, my uncles, friends, close friends, showing up for me in that way. People such as you, Trinae, to be honest, I thanked you privately years ago, in the moment, but I would like to thank you again publicly on your podcast, because I will
Girl, you
never
don't have
forget.
to listen.
I know, but listen, I will never. The reason I want to do it is because I want people to understand that even you talk about the people who, might say, call me if you need me or any of those things, right? But sometimes, like, okay, for you and I, we were friends in high school, right? But life runs its course, and it's not like we talk all the time or anything like that. But you still acknowledge that moment in support of my hard time and grieving. And I'll never forget that, because I feel like I got my nails done. with that, with
Listen,
that,
one thing I'm gonna do is drop off a card and a little something.
yes. I think I got my nails done, and those things, like pampering yourself in that moment, maybe, going to get a massage. There were a lot of people, even though they may not have been there as consistently as others, they showed up and might have taken me out to eat. My mother laughs about that all the time. She's like, I'm just surprised you didn't gain so much weight. This many people was taking you out to eat. So
listen, I love it. I was on vacation with my husband, and I had been fasting social media, and I opened up my social media page, and it was that. And I was like, I think you guys were at like Morgan, like doing like something like a tribute or something for him.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no, wait, what didn't happen since I kept saying, see, Lord, this is why I can't be fasting social media. It ain't all bad. And so I said, not the first thing. And I remember like just my heart broke for you. Because as a wife, as a young wife, it puts things into perspective of, hold up, this is not what I expected.
Right. And it can happen to any of us.
Yes. Yes. And so, it definitely was my pleasure to do that. And we oftentimes have to do that more. And it don't need to be a social media post or all of that. Like some stuff you do and private.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's necessary sometimes for just that to be an intimate thing and not something that people need to feel like they need to get recognition for. And so, I thank you for that. But those are the things love lifted me, honestly, people pouring into me with their love. I read a book. I want to say to like reading book and journaling. I read books. The COO of Facebook husband had died when they were on vacation, and I read that book, and that was very helpful. She was I can't think of the title, but I remember one of the principles in her book was lean into the suck. Like when it sucks, lean into it. Because a lot of times people try to just mask it with, I'm okay. How are you doing? I'm okay. I'm fine. But no, you're not. Like, I'm not fine. And I got comfortable too with like not doing the things I didn't want to do or being around the people I didn't want to be around. Like, I had to really tap into doing what made me feel good, what was best for me.
I love that. I love that. I think that we got to put more emphasis, and we have to be, a lot of times we talk about being the church, and like in church, I think people only look at helping the church and not like always realizing that in the world, regardless to if we're in the same church, no matter what, we are to be helpmates for our sisters, our brothers, and that's just something that we're supposed to do, So whenever we can shed his light, we have to do it. And I think also another thing that you said, finding out what the person needs versus assuming what they need.
Yes, that is very key. Because some people, and some people also, especially when you're so young going through that, they don't know just as much as, and these are the people that can be close to you, just as much as you've never gone through it before. They've never gone through trying to support somebody in that way before either. And so they sometimes have a hard time with how to be there for you. And so it's a learning curve with that too. And it's not easy, but God, was in the midst of it all and definitely helped to navigate those rough waters. And my favorite scripture from that time in my life is actually Romans 8:18. The sufferings of the present time do not compare to the glory that will be revealed in us. That stuck with me the entire time because it was like my hope for the suffering to not be forever, to be temporary. And I also just knew that something within me just knew that God would bring me restoration, would restore me from that circumstance, and still allow me to experience life where he's granting me the desires of my heart. I knew that he was too good not to do that for me. I just knew it. I just, even in that moment, I know some people were like, well, y'all were just so in love, you think you'll get married again and things like that. And in my mind, I'm like, why wouldn't I get married again? Like I'm 25, but at that particular time, of course, I'm not thinking about going to get married right now, but I always thought that I would find love again.
So that takes us to a good segue to the process of you finding love again. How was that? How did you feel like the release to be able to do that? How did you navigate, families accepting you moving on, or people? I think we mean well, but a lot of times we can be very judgmental of
Yeah.
other people's process. I'm not sure if that's something that you went through, but how was your process of finding it again?
I think, when it came my way, I wasn't really looking. It wasn't like I was at a place where I was like, okay, I'm ready to date intentionally to marry. Like, it was just at that time I was open to going on a date, but I didn't expect anything to come from that date. I I think that as far as me dating, I did choose to date privately just because I didn't want to have anyone taint or alter my experience by whatever their beliefs or experiences were. Because ultimately, they didn't suffer what I suffered, so they certainly can't tell me how to move through that process. And then once I got to a place where I felt that the dating was becoming more serious, then I did, more openly talk about it and share it, because what am I hiding? And you can either choose to accept that or not, was how I felt about it at the time, and how, I still feel about it, if anybody that feels any way. But, I think that it wasn't so much of a concern for me. The judgment wasn't so much of a concern for me because nobody lived what I lived through. I was, I did feel that I wanted to be transparent before I became more publicly open. I wanted to be more transparent with like his parents more privately, and I did do that because we all loved each other, respected each other, and I just felt like I wouldn't want them to just see or hear about it from anybody, because I know they also had to process the same things that I'm processing in a different way, though.
Right.
But aside from the people that I love and care about, those may be the only people that I chose to like make intentional conversations about what I'm doing with that. But even then, that was very well received. So
That's good.
I'm very grateful to have had that experience. And yeah, I think that my experience with it overall, I would say, was good. I don't think I can think of any person that said anything to me. Now, I don't know what people say, on their own
As long
and
as
what
they
they
didn't
think,
say it to you.
but they never said anything to me. Now, people might say and think whatever, but nobody has come to me.
Realistically, it's been years. Well, publicly,
Yes.
it's been years, and so I at 25 to lose somebody, I don't think that the expectation should have ever been that you would stay single for the rest of your life.
Right. Right.
So how has it been? How was it navigating? Because you were with your first husband for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that navigating with a new person
Mm-hmm.
and the shoes, I'm not going to say the shoes that he had to fill because he's his own man.
Right.
And I just believe that people should be able to walk in their own path and not in the shadows of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So how was it navigating something totally different? Let's just say it's something totally different.
Yeah. It was interesting because when you're used to someone and some ways of the dynamics of a relationship, and then you're learning somebody else, it's naturally going to be adjustments, right, that have to be made. But I also think I took it on as an embrace. Like I chose to embrace the newness. Like it was almost like exciting. Like, oh, I get to learn this new person and I get to, figure these things out. And then some things were annoying. Because it's like, well, why do you do it like this? Or why do like you think
Because you
about
were
those
used
things.
to one way.
Yeah, you're used to one way, and when you're in a relationship and you're that young, like you're teenagers, you like grow up together. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of foundational things that are being established. And then when you are grown dating, you're bringing your baggage, more, which is more baggage. Because when you're 16, you ain't really got that much baggage. You know what I mean? So, you're bringing more bag. I'm bringing being a widow and all these other aspects of my life, and he's bringing whatever he's bringing, and we're trying to collaborate and do life together. And so that was a lot to navigate. I don't think we both were like looking for each other, but it also was like when we found each other, it was like, wow, we can't even not be with each other, but we got to figure out how we're going to do this, And so I think that that was why it was key for him and I to kind of like take our time through that process. Like that's why I think that when I hear these other podcasts and I hear a lot of, I shouldn't say hear other podcasts, but I hear other people on podcasts and they try to put everything in a box. I'm like, everything cannot go in a box, because I'm so the example of the exception to that. And I think that when people say like, well, all you need to do is date for a year or two and you should know that that's your person, you should get married. But it's like, life isn't always that cookie cutter black and white. Like it's not that textbook. It can be very complex. And I think that what's best is to do what is best for you too.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
Too.
I hear so many people, like some people say that they have gotten married in a month and they've been married for 67 years.
And
And
that works for
something
them.
crazy that worked for them.
And that's beautiful. I think it is so beautiful that is what worked for them. But I also think it's beautiful when people, are together for 4 years and they decide to get married and they have been married for 60 years. Like, I mean, I don't think it really matters. I think the point that they're trying to emphasize is that, you don't want to waste time with someone who really doesn't want to be in a relationship or want the marriage if that's what you want. I get that, as far as wasting time. But if you guys don't feel like you're wasting time and you feel like this is perfect timing for us, I think that that's more important than anything else, because you don't want to rush into it trying to be on some societal timetable and then it fails when you could have just took another year or 2 or 3 or whatever to establish a strong foundation to make sure that when you do it, it lasts.
Agree. I cannot agree with you more. That is one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because at 24, being pregnant, where we were engaged, broke up, and then when I became pregnant, I felt like society said in church,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good
Mm-hmm.
church girl, and
Mm-hmm.
I cannot have this baby out of wedlock. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I did, and I don't like to say that I have regrets. I have life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I say that one of the biggest lessons is that I should have got in a prayer closet with just me and God, and like silence the noise
Mm-hmm.
and silence what I felt like society wanted for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I pushed something that had I just waited just a little bit, I
Mm-hmm.
think that it would have had a totally different outcome. And that's not to say that we would have never gotten married. That's not to say that it, wouldn't have been great and all the things, but that is to say that there's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
And God ordains things. And sometimes we take it into our own hands to try to orchestrate some things. And then when
Mm-hmm.
everything be falling apart, you'd be like, well, wait. And then he'd be like, no, you wait. Because had you
Right.
waited, had you waited, these things would have been so different. But I remember, like, so we were supposed to get married in August. We broke up. I was pregnant. My due date was January of the next year. And I remember, like, as the time was getting closer and closer, like, I had like the pregnancy app, and like it was like counting down. And I remember, like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Like, something
Mm-hmm.
has to change. And so when him and I got back together, I was like, listen,
Mm-hmm.
what is what? And I think it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 36-year-old me, the mature me, and again, I grew up in church.
Mm-hmm.
Mother's a preacher, been in church, all the days. So it was not that I did not have a relationship with God. I think my trust level for God has just matured.
Mm-hmm.
Like whereas then, I'm all for your will, God, but I want your will to align with my will.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas now I'm like, less of me, more of you. However, that gotta work. And so if I gotta not do this, then I'm not gonna do that. And that is okay with me. So I love what you said about the whole society piece. We gotta
Mm-hmm.
get one
And
with
and
God.
that's what I think probably was, I won't say more impactful because I can't speak for you, but I will say when we're younger, we are more impacted by others' opinions and societal beliefs and religious beliefs and all of these different things. And so when we find ourselves in certain circumstances and we're trying to figure out what to do, like you said, as opposed to being able to cancel out that noise, a lot of that noise is there and we're actually taking it into consideration. Whereas when you're 35 or 36 years old, you're able to cancel it out a lot easier. And when you're 45 and 55 and 60,
You really don't care.
as it keeps going, it really becomes a I don't give a, type
Yes.
of situation. But I think that when you're younger, there, because you still, like I said from the beginning, when you're 25, you're so young. Like we think that is like a grown age, especially when we were in whatever grade, elementary, middle school, playing MASH and all of these things. And you think that when you're 25, like you're
You're gonna have
super
it all
grown
together.
and that you'll have it all
And you
together.
don't.
But it really is still such a young age. My gosh, I've grown so much from 10 years ago.
Yes. I always say, like I sit back and I think, because I've always hung around people that are older than me. And I have a really, really close like family. And like I be like looking back, like, girl, why you ain't say? And she was like, girl, you was hell bent
You
over
was,
true religion.
yeah,
And even my mother says the same thing. Like, and so I think there are instances that only life can teach you that lesson.
yes, yes, only like it.
You're not gonna get it
Mm-mm.
unless you got to see if the fire is hot. You got to
Yes,
touch it. No
yes.
matter how much somebody tells you, oh, that fire is hot, it's gonna burn you. It's
Mm-hmm.
going. I'm gonna be honest. I thought the fire might have been hot, but I got the controller, because, like, to me, and this is where I can say I was probably real. I'm not gonna say I probably. I'm gonna say I was. I was real judgmental. like to others. Like my situation is different. Like, oh no, I have two jobs. I have a college degree. I am established. I have my own vehicle. I don't need a man. I add to the man, like I have all of these societal checkpoints. And so I think, well, wait a minute. Like, what about, are you happy? Like the basics. Forget what life thinks that you're supposed to have. What about just you?
Right.
And I think that was a journey, like trying to figure out what I like. Have you ever had to go through that process of like learning you again?
For sure. I mean, I think it's because we changed so much, but I think, when I had that pivotal life experience, it really forced me to learn me in a different way, because it was just me at that point in time. And so I had a lot of time to myself. I think that I learned what I like, what I don't like. I learned what I want, what I don't want. I learned, I learned to be even more content because, being raised as an only child, you become a certain level of content with being by yourself. So, because you have to make fun for yourself. You got to play Barbie and Ken because
Yes.
ain't nobody else to be the other one for you,
Listen, that's why I'm so bossy now, because I was
me
the teacher
too.
and a kid.
Yeah, so we had to multitask from a very young age, and I think that it forced me to sit in solitude in a certain type of way. But again, I'm very grateful for that time because it taught me so much about me, and it taught me to be real to me about me, like to really address what I'm really feeling and not really analyze it in a way of how I want people to think I feel and really express how I feel. And them having to adjust to that as opposed to me having to mask what I'm really feeling to appease what they think I should feel like or be like. And that was very hard too, because I think by nature, in some aspects, I'm a people pleaser. And I think that I like to keep peace, and I had to learn how to make peace. I think that was a pivotal principle for me that I learned as well. Like, Jesus didn't come to keep peace. He came to make peace. And when you got to make peace, sometimes you do have to flip over a table. Sometimes you do have to cause disruption. Sometimes you do have to shake things up in order for things to fall into place. And so I think understanding that concept of like, okay, yes, you like balance and you like things to be peaceful. You don't like confrontation, all these things, but sometimes it's necessary to get to the place that you are trying to be at.
Those difficult conversations. And I don't think that I think when I was younger, I probably said a bit too much.
Okay.
And so I did, because I can admit I did not know what to say out of my mouth, and I said whatever I wanted to say. And I think as I matured, I sort of kind of lost my voice in trying to I wanted to be a better person. I think I just wanted to be a better person. But then I think I went like too far left. Like I'm like, okay. So now it's
you
like,
had to find the balance, the middle ground.
Yes. Now I'm like, we're gonna find balance. I don't have to address everything, but you can address some things when you need to address those things. And it does not have to be because I'm the only child. I used to be okay with like cutting off people. Like,
oh yeah, that is a big only child thing that I second that emotion.
listen, we don't even gotta have a conversation.
No, we don't.
We good.
But if I love you enough, I'm gonna have a conversation with you about it. But if I don't, oh, we're good. And I'm good because I know how to live without you.
And so I have gone to the complete opposite. So like I used to like people that I was very close with. I had no problem cutting you off. I can move on and all of the things. And then I went to like the complete opposite of I'ma like lay people out that I don't care about, but like people that I care about, I'm having a hard time holding you accountable. And so, excuse me, now I'm more so like, okay, now listen here. Now I done let this go past, and I done let this go. I don't like this. But and so the people that really, really know me, they're all like, and like even my friends, sometimes they be like, "Oh, look at you, Chucky. I like it." Like, because they know how much it takes for me to say something, because I also know that delivery is everything. And my delivery is off sometimes.
The message will not be received without proper delivery.
And so sometimes when I don't say anything, it's because my delivery, my delivery. And I recognize that now. Like, I gotta take a second. I gotta wait until I'm able to say it, because I want you to hear what I have to say.
And that's so important, because sometimes people are like, no, I'm gonna say what I gotta say, and they just gonna have to deal with it and blah 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 blah. But it's like, but do you want them to hear what you're saying? Do you want them to respond to what you're saying? And if you do, then maybe you should consider how you deliver it to them. And that does sometimes require us to step back and wait till we cool off, or wait till it's a good time where maybe that person isn't distracted, or that person isn't up high in their emotions, where they can actually hear and they can listen to understand and not listen to respond and all of those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know that you talked about you wanting to have children. When you were on your journey to find love again, did you ever consider having children and not being married because the timetable did not align with
a lot
your
of people
plans?
had asked me that. No. And honestly, it really stemmed back to my foundation of how I was raised. As I mentioned earlier, like, I just really thought it was so beneficial to have a two-parent household. And I thought of it to be selfish of me to bring a child in this world and not try to give them the best circumstance just because I want a child. Because I think sometimes, and this is my opinion, I think sometimes, when people want to have kids, they want to have kids so bad, but like, have you considered the circumstances you're bringing this child into? Because you're bringing a human being into this world, and you're responsible for how this child turns out. This is going to be your little experiment, and the results are going to reflect what environment you put them in, and what you instilled in them and how you raise them. So putting myself aside, as far as having a kid, it was not more important for me to have a kid than it was for me to be married first. I would rather had not had kids and just been like, okay, God, whatever you have planned for me. I didn't believe that's what he had planned for me, but I was not going to have a child just because my timetable was thrown off, or because my plan was altered. I just believed that God would provide me somebody to marry and then have kids. Now, I never thought I would have kids this late. My mother had me this late. And
Why you keep saying this late? You are not that old.
Because, Trinae, when you talk about how did you envision yourself at 18, and okay, this is before 18 for me. Like, this is like, I remember walking home from middle school thinking, like, I'm not going to wait that long to have my kids. Like, but now that I am this age too, I do also feel like I'm not that old.
Finally.
And then, but I do recognize, though, biologically, I do recognize that it's a factor, but I don't feel like I look and feel that old. So I don't, look at it that way to every extent, being this age now, seeing what it's like and experiencing it. But I do, think, and I'm grateful that God is providing me the opportunity to be married and have a kid. But no, I was not going to put the cart before the horse.
Listen. So how is wedding planning going over there?
Wedding planning is going. Oh my God. Like, I mean, we we have been right now. It's crunch time. It's going to be this year, and we got a few months left, and it's just it's a lot of work. But I also am the type of person as well that like I'm very hands-on. I multitask. My career now requires me to manage a lot, so I'm used to it. And even by nature, I think I'm just a multitasking manager. I can be bossy at times, and I think that it is not
It's the
difficult.
Virgo in you.
It is, but what's funny is and it's funny. I saw this post the other day. The guy called it what did he call it? A Vibra, because technically I'm a Libra, but I'm on the cusp for Virgo.
Oh, okay.
So it's like I have both qualities. And my old boss used to say to me all the time, because she was a Virgo, and she was just like, I just can't stop forgetting that you're not a Virgo. But I think that I do have, I guess, some of those characteristics. But yeah, no, I like to, make sure things get done. I'm gonna make sure things get done, basically. So even though it's work, I'm also constantly reminding myself that this is also something that I wanted. So I'm also trying to constantly remind myself to be grateful for the busyness, right? Because I could easily be in a situation where I'm not planning a wedding, and I'm not planning to be married and all of those things. So I'm grateful for this too. And I'm starting to enjoy that process as well.
I love that. You touched on career really shortly. What is your career? What do you do? All
So
of the
I'm a
things.
dental hygienist by trade, but now I'm the program director of a dental hygiene program. So now I run an entire program where students are coming to become dental hygienists. And it's a
Nice. Listen, now you don't have the empty classroom anymore. It's not just you and you being the students and the teacher as a kid growing up. You
yeah.
have real students
Yes.
to
Yes.
guide
Yes.
and to lead. I love
I
it.
have real students, a lot of students, faculty and staff to oversee. And it was an interesting journey, because when I first took the role, I didn't have a full staff, so I was working like three people's jobs, and still running that program. And I was just sharing with my mother earlier how, or we were discussing how grateful I am now to be able to have all of the players in position for me to really more so operate in my role. And for me to, it feels crazy though, Trinae, honestly, it feels like I'm so used to running at a certain pace on the treadmill that now that I can slow down and almost, what is that last 5 minute phase on the treadmill? I forgot what it's called, but like when you,
It's not the warm up, it's the
yeah,
cool
it's like,
down.
yeah, warm down, or cool down, I think, or something like that. I'm in like that kind of phase, and I just feel like I'm missing something. I feel like it's always something to do. Like I just feel weird not having that stress, I guess, and busyness, but I'm grateful that I'm here at this point.
I love it. So I know that you wear a lot of hats. I'm on this self-care journey. I suck at self-care. So I love to get find out what other people are doing. What do you do for self-care?
Oh, okay. Self-care. When I can, I love to get a massage. I love a massage. So that my head, well, it's funny. Sometimes we take for granted what self-care is, right? Like, but really getting my hair done every 2 weeks, that's self-care. Getting my nails done is self-care for me. And you know what else has become self-care for me? Like getting rest. Just the
Now
idea of
you
just,
telling your age. You telling your
yeah,
age
but
with the
I'm
rest.
serious. Like literally staying home all day, never leaving, and being able to like you have food, all the food you need in the refrigerator. So all you gotta do is come downstairs, maybe
Listen,
finding yourself something good to watch, peace and quiet. That's self-care to me. But I mean, of course, on the extravagant side of things, there would be your vacations and shopping.
We can
And
never get enough of that.
yeah, because retail therapy is nice. But when you have budgets and goals, and we're planning this wedding, and we just, did some home renovations and all of these things, you may not be able to shop. And so I think the maturity aspect of life for me at this time has allowed me to not feel like deprived when it comes to not shopping, because I see where else it's going, type of thing. But yeah, I think those are my self-care. And I mean, otherwise it would be me also like feeding myself spiritually, like as far as sermons, um, reading, anything to enhance me, the inner me, the core of me, the heart of me, the mind of me, just in ways that I can continuously grow and be better.
I love that. I love that. I like to call it delayed gratification for the shopping. I've been a full-time law student for 3 years, and baby, transitioning from a 2 income household to a 1 income household, we did prepare and things like that, but I am used to going on several vacations a year. Ones without my children, ones with the children, all of the things. And I have developed little bougie children that they believe that a vacation is not in the United States. So unless it's Disney World,
where's the passport, mommy?
Exactly. They will take Disney, but outside of Disney World, we went on a trip. That wasn't vacation. Like, I didn't even know that was a difference, but okay. So it's definitely been like a delayed gratification. We went from 2 to 3 trips a year to maybe 1 trip a year. But they've been troopers, and I've been a trooper. But baby, the countdown is on. Okay.
When are you done?
I graduate May 16th.
Oh, right.
Yes, and I take the bar. For you. I am stick a fork in me done. We're gonna do one and done. We claiming that now.
Oh, for sure. It's already done.
Yes, I received that.
All you gotta do is go get your blessing.
Yes. I'm like, okay, we almost to the finish line. And that's what I always tell myself. Like, Beyonce dropped, and I'm like, so you gonna have that in the middle of me doing bar prep? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna skip you this year. Yeah. But delayed gratification.
I had to do the same thing too, Trinae. I mean, Beyonce always knows how to make you have a dilemma.
I'm telling you, it's called being an adult. Being an adult and like making decisions. And it's not being an adult and making good decisions are not just about finances, right? So like it could be a thing that you can make it work financially. Oh yeah. But it's also about, is this the right timing for me?
So it becomes the dichotomy of what's best to do versus what you want to do. Yes. What you want to do, you probably could make it happen, but is that what's best to do right now? Right? And so it's not what's best to do. I may want to, and honestly, I don't even know how much I want to with Cowboy Carter. I mean, I listened to the album and I heard a few songs, but I still was not as attached as I have been with other albums. And it may just be because the genre of country music is not really like a genre that I'm into. And I'm not open to country music, because I do like that. What was his name? Shabuzi? I don't know, but I think that's the other country singer that she had on the album. But I like his song, but it's still not something where I felt like, I know she's a great entertainer, but I felt like going to her concert, I don't know if it would be as invigorating and exciting
as what we're used to.
Yeah, only because I don't know how much of it I can sing along to and how much of it I could really like get into.
Right. Is it going to be a thing? Because normally when I go to a concert, and I go every year, well, every year that she has
Yeah,
it, I'm
yes,
standing up the whole concert.
yes,
But
yes.
this might be I'm sitting there.
Yeah, a couple songs because you're like, okay, Jolene, come on, girl, I'm listening. But you know what? But you,
Here,
huh?
like throw another song in here from another
Yes,
album.
yes, yes.
Like,
And I don't know if she's gonna do that or not. And it's her prerogative whether
whatever
she
she
wants to
does.
or not.
Yes.
And I would have to choose and say, do I want to give my money to that, not knowing what I'm going to experience. Now, one of my friends, she's like, you might end up looking back and seeing footage and regretting that you didn't get it, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with
I
it.
think it's gonna be fine. The first show is gonna drop and we're gonna get the song list.
Yes.
What I know to be true is that I this is the thing. The day of, there will be some tickets available if in fact you just have to go.
I
But
don't think I just had to go though.
unless she's saying that that Destiny Child is coming out, and
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, I would be fine if she told me that Kelly and Latoya was coming out. But
Okay.
if she not saying that, I'm not like I gotta do this.
Yes. Yes. No,
I'm
I get it.
okay.
Yes.
I'm
I
okay.
mean, I'm okay with it. And I think it's okay sometimes as well it's always okay to put yourself first and to do what's best than it is to, you know,
Go with the
just try
fans.
to try to go with what's happening and knowing that that's not what should be done.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we close it out,
Yes.
if you could go back, you kind of touched on it, but I want to wrap this up really quickly. If you could go back to 18-year-old Brionna, what would you tell her?
Oh Lord. I think I would tell her to definitely be to be optimistic and have an open mind about life. That you have a plan, but things may not go as planned, and know that God is the director of your life, and no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, and you're going to overcome whatever you have to face, whatever challenges you have to face. Um, I think I would tell her to definitely, follow through with whatever it is that you want to do. So, like, I was always a go getter at that time anyway. And I would tell her, do that. That's going to pay off. Just follow your heart, go with what it is that you think is best for you. And sometimes, it may take you a little longer because even when I became a dental hygienist, that wasn't a straight line. That was a little bit of a detour for me. But I think one of the key principles, life principles I learned with that is like the time is going to pass whether you do something with it or not. And so, and you may understand that too now going back into law school, like that 3 years was going to pass whether you went to law school or not. And now you're here and you're almost done. So like, I think when people are 18 and they're trying to just like, well, I want to go to college and I'm going to be graduating by the time I'm 21 or 22. And then I want to be married and have kids when I'm 25 and, all of those things. I think I would just tell that 18-year-old me to just make a plan, but understand that, you may have to pivot and go with the pivot. Adapt to change over trying to force and stick to your plan. And
I love that.
always put God first. Always.
I love that. And I also I want to commend you for not allowing fear. I think a lot of times the enemy will try to do things to us that will hinder us from moving forward. And many people in your situation could have let fear of the situation happening again stop them from finding love again. And I just want to commend you on that. Not not allowing that to stop you from flourishing, not allowing that to stop you from still going after the plans that you wanted and, the plans that you set out to do. So kudos to you. I'm wishing you well. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for your marriage. And I'm not going to say wedding because we want a long, long, long marriage.
Yes.
So I'm rooting for that for you and praying for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Trinae. And I again just want to tell you I'm so proud of you. I can still see you in that gym class. But we have come a long way. And I mean, I definitely want to commend you for, taking on the challenge of being a wife, a mother too, and deciding to go to law school and making the sacrifices to do that. I know that is not easy by far. And it's definitely inspiring and commendable to me, and I'm sure to many others. So, kudos to you for that and not being afraid to do that as well.
Thank you, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to tell you I wasn't afraid.
Well, you didn't scared, and that's good. Yes. Because even when you are afraid, and we all, when we experience new things, it is a little fear sometimes attached to that. But to do it anyway.
That's the part. It's doing it anyway. I always say if your dreams and your aspirations don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. That's right. If what you are dreaming and what you are planning, you can do it in your own might. You're not doing it big enough. When I decided to go to law school, I didn't know how I was going to do that. Because realistically, because I knew that we were going to do this. No, I didn't. Initially, I did not know, but we've always lived below our means. However, you still depend on two incomes. Yeah. So when I applied
in today's economy, when eggs are $7-8,
who you telling? So when I decided to do it, I really did it as a joke. Like, you like temp God. I did it in the middle of the night. I applied. And I said, I'm going to apply for full time. If he going to do it, he going to do it. And if he not going to do it, he not going to do it. But I'm not doing this for 5 years. And so when I got in, I was like, not you call my bluff. So
the joke's on you, honey. Don't tempt me.
Jokes on you. And my virtual pastor, PMJ, he always say, if it's God's will, then it's his bill. He gonna foot it. So I'm always calling him forth, like, you open these doors for this to happen. So what's behind them doors. Yeah. So it's sustaining me. So all glory to him. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And how can people connect with you and be inspired by your story and all of the things?
Oh, wow. I'm on Instagram. So because I'm an instructor and I'm a teacher, all those things, my page is private, but you can follow me on Instagram at The Boss Lady Bree. So that's THEBOSSLADYBRI. And I would say that's probably the best way to connect with me. I do have LinkedIn, though. I do have LinkedIn. And that's just, Brionna Burris, BRIONNA BURRIS. If that also is another media platform to connect.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and be sure to check out the next episode.
Yes, please stay tuned.
Good night, everybody.
And many blessings to you on your podcast and all of your endeavors, Trinae.
Thank you.
You're welcome.